Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I've found a little spot here that I thought would be of interest. It's an estuary system. We are in San Jose Del Cabo on the southern end of the Baja Peninsula in Mexico. It's kind of like a scrubby, more desertish scrub kind of area, and this is an estuary or wetland area right near the seashore, right in the town of San Jose Del Cabo. I just thought it was interesting, the variety of birds, lizards, plant life, and these sorts of things. Just quite fascinating area. You might be able to hear a little bit of traffic noise. We are next to the city, but it's certainly not a crowded area. And you can see ahead of me is a trail that's flooded, and there's a lot of water in here. It's currently mid-July, very hot, but I'm not quite certain of the cycles of the river or you know, when the flood stages are and this type of thing. But there's a lot of water here, and you can see this area, we're covered in essentially duckweed. A lot of variety of trees and plants, and we're going to take a look at some of these. And one of them behind me here, you see a few. This is Washingtonia robusta, which is the Mexican fan palm. You may see, you know, a lot of people recognize them in Los Angeles area. They're the very tall, skinny palms that grow there, or were, you know, they're native to this area. And I don't believe they were native to California. However, there is a relative native to California, but these are the Mexican fan palms. So anyway, we'll have a closer look at some of these. All right, we're right below one of those Mexican fan palms that we were just filming there. And I just wanted to show something that's kind of interesting here. You'll see that the outer fibrous husk has completely come off this one. There's a lot of holes and peeling of the fibrous wood, that type of thing. And some of the differences that between a palm, which we call a palm tree, kind of in a common language, right? But it's not really a tree. So the palm is a monocot, more closely related to grass than trees. So it doesn't have the same sort of outer bark and that type of thing that transports nutrients and water, because that would kill a regular tree if it was in this kind of condition. But this palm still survives because it's not structured the same internally. It doesn't have growth rings and that type of thing. So just kind of a interesting thing to note when you're looking at palms and you see a lot of heavily damaged trunks and they still live. Well, this is why. All right, here we have a non-native species, I'm assuming anyway. This is some sort of date or phoenix species palm. They easily hybridize. The Canary Island date and the true dates easily hybridize, so it's really hard to tell exactly if it's one or the other, or a mix. So you can see the trunk here is kind of going across the ground horizontally, then it comes up. It has fruited fairly recently and the seeds have all been dispersed, but just kind of interesting that, you know, there would be a lot of being kind of very close to a resort area, there would be a lot of, you know, birds and these types of things that would take the seed from you know, the resort plantings and the gardens and such, and bring them to an area like this. So just kind of interesting. They seem to have completely naturalized in this area. The climate obviously would be pretty favorable for them, hot, dry, doesn't freeze. So yeah, so I've seen lots of phoenix species in the area, so it seems to be fairly common here. All right, here we can see more of the date palms here. These ones are fruiting right now. As you can see, they're quite heavy with dates, and like I said, they could very well be a hybrid, some sort of relative. But again, we have a kind of horizontal trunk, and then it's coming up, and it's kind of a growth habit I haven't seen before in dates. And these here we can see the seeds or fruit, or however, you know, obviously if you've ever had a date, it's surrounded by kind of a the pit is surrounded by a thick kind of sweet fruit. These aren't true dates from what I can see, and I'll show some on the ground. So these are ripe, and not quite exactly what you'd normally see for a date. So there's the fruit. I'll see if I can peel away some of this fruit and we can see inside here. One sec. All right, so I peeled this the pit, and you can see the fruit there is a bit of a yellowy, kind of light colored fruit. Certainly nothing like a true date or Phoenix dactylifera. This is something different, maybe a hybrid of the of one of the other Phoenix species, maybe partial Canary Island date palm, that type of thing. But like I said, I've never seen growth habits like this with dates, or even Canary Island dates. So, but anyway, the seed you can see is maybe 1.5 centimeters, maybe a, you know, a little under an inch long, 3/4 of an inch or so, and the fruit is quite thin. So anyway, that's something pretty common here, it appears, regardless of where it came from. It's they are certainly around, and these are mixed with the Mexican fan palms. As you can see, they're pretty much all over the place here. So we'll take a closer look at those next. All right, just another thing to kind of point out here. This, what we're seeing here in front of us, is not much more than a puddle. And as soon as you look in, it's actually like, it's teeming with fish. There's hundreds and hundreds of fish in here. Not really sure how they survive. There can't be much oxygen in this water. But just wanted to point it out. There's a lot of life in this area. These warm climates, when you mix that with water, you just get a tremendous amount of life. And everywhere you look here, even in these puddles, we're seeing something interesting. So really interesting. Okay, so here's a good example of Washingtonia robusta, and we'll take a closer look. You can see in the tree there's a couple of doves, yeah, so anyway, we'll take a closer look at what these are all about. These are some young ones, so we're able to see how the fronds are growing and what they look like. As you can see, these ones have actually had the fronds cut, which is kind of interesting in an area like this, but the fronds have been cut. They tend to hold the fronds, and its relative, the California fan palm, they actually hold the palms permanently, or the old fronds, and they kind of are, you know, extend down the trunk like almost like a coat. Not everybody likes that, of course. In a domesticated kind of area, most people cut those off because it's not only a fire hazard, but you get things like cockroaches and rats and that type of thing in there. So okay, so anyway, we'll look at the so there's no crown shaft in this palm. It's a palmate palm, meaning that with the fan-shaped leaves, you can see the petiole here is quite large and armored. We have large thorns extending up right into the leaf base. Let's take a closer look here. We are here, and we'll look at how this leaf base extends out. And then this is quite large. This is probably 30 inches across, maybe, you know, getting close to a meter, maybe a little more than 30 inches. So these are the young fronds. Usually you see a little more coloration in a line along the edge of the frond here with Washingtonia robusta. So we'll see, we'll take a look at some more. It's certainly possible that these are hybridized as well, but let's have a look at a few others and we'll see what we can find out. Okay, here's a good example here. This is a little bit larger one, and a great example of that coloration, that reddish coloration you can see at the edge of the petiole with the thorns there. So these are certainly Washingtonia robusta, and you can see this one here is a little bit older than the last one we looked at. Again, it's had all the old fronds cut, so not sure why some of these have their fronds cut. As you can see, the one across this little puddle here has not, and they're still attached and kind of hanging. And some of the older ones here, we can see some of the old fronds staying. Again, it's relative, the California fan palm, the Washingtonia filifera, I believe, it'll hold them right to the ground. These just hold a certain amount, and then eventually they'll get blown off by wind and whatnot. All right, let's have a look at some really young ones. These are quite a bit younger. These would be the first year. And you can see that it still has its strap leaves. Young palms tend to have leaves that aren't fully formed. And you can see we have two strap leaves here, and then another leaf here. The third leaf is coming out nearly fully formed. And its immediate neighbor here has lost its strap leaves and now is starting its fully formed leaves here. And you can see, as it's very young, the armor isn't quite developed yet either, so that comes along with a little bit more size. And another feature of these palms is they have these kind of like fibers and strings that are present on all the leaves. Some people don't like that. Some people think it's okay. Just for, I mean, in the climate where I live in Canada, Alberta, Canada, these actually do really well as summer potted patio plants, that type of thing. They don't mind that dryness that we have there. So some people use them for that, but for indoor plants, with the thorns, the size of the leaves, and the fibers, generally you're not going to see that. But so yeah, we'll have a look and see if we can find a few larger ones here. All right, so here is the seed of Washingtonia robusta, and you can see here the seed, the fruit or the seed coat is kind of black and peels off easily when ripe like this. It's quite a small seed, maybe 3 or 4 millimeters, maybe 1/8 of an inch long, that type of thing. And this, I guess this is the time when they're ripe, because there's lots on the ground I'm seeing around here. But they certainly put off a lot, and I'll show some old ones. You can see right up in here we have some seeds that are still hanging on to the flowers, or the flower stems where it flowered, and they'll drop off when ripe, and they'll be there. That's why there's so many young palms in this area. I guess there are a lot of seeds, and you can see just the sheer amount of these Washingtonia robusta in this area. The combination of the heat and moisture is obviously very good for them, and they don't mind being inundated with water here. This was recently flooded, it looks like, and there's where you see the duckweed there, it still is flooded. Kind of surprising. I didn't know they liked or were tolerant of being, you know, being kind of in water like that. So kind of interesting. It's further to the point of how these are able to survive in water. We can see all the green stuff here is duckweed, and it's just water underneath. As you can see here, I'll put my foot in there, you can see just water. Occasionally you can even see a little splash and something moving under the duckweed, so I'm assuming there's some small fish in here as well. Water's permanent enough for them to be here. So just, yeah, like I said, I just hadn't really expected to see so many palms in standing water. So really really kind of surprising. So, and you can see also the water here, it's quite nutrient rich, I guess I would say. It's very dark with organic matter in places. Almost looks like oil. Yeah, and there's a great variety of plants and animals from what I can tell. Looks like some sort of like hyacinth, reeds, there's grasses, there's all sorts of things here. So just a fascinating area. Well, here's an interesting spot. It's a small, well, it's actually leading to a larger area of the wetland, but it's just absolutely brimming with fish. You can see the duckweed on top moving with the fish, you know, swimming around. It's quite shallow, so there's not a lot of room for them in there, but there are just so many. It's really hard to tell. It's hard to film because I can't quite get too close without actually going in, and it's really hard to tell the species as well. They almost look like some sort of cichlid. It's really hard to tell because you're a few feet back from them in the reflection, but just the sheer amount is quite impressive. They are everywhere, and I know that it doesn't really come across on film very well, but everywhere you look, there's fish moving. And as you can see, this kind of goes into a larger area of the wetland, so maybe more of a permanent kind of water body here. The other one that we filmed the fish in looked to me like it's going to dry out, but you know, who knows? I don't really know what the kind of water cycle is here, but yeah, just life everywhere you look. Well, I thought this was a fitting spot to end the video. We see this amazing marsh full of plants and grasses and reeds, and across it's kind of almost a forest of Mexican fan palms or Washingtonia robusta. Just a really great area to come and see. If you're in the area, it's well worth the short walk that it is. It's a very small area, you know, protected area, well worth a visit. So if you're ever in the San Jose Del Cabo area, check out the Estuary on the east side of the town. So great spot. Thanks.